Imagine winning a brutal civil war, only to sneak back into your own capital city like you just committed a crime. The rebel leader is dead, the threat is neutralized, yet the victorious army creeps through the gates in absolute shame. Here in Jerusalem, the nation's leader is completely paralyzed. King David is locked away, weeping uncontrollably for the rebel commander who tried to overthrow him, because that commander was his own son, Absalom. This profound personal grief is creating a lethal political vacuum. The civil war left the nation deeply fractured, and David's prolonged silence gives the surviving rebel factions time to regroup. Without a decisive leader at the helm, the conflict is on the verge of reigniting. It takes David's most ruthless and loyal general, Joab, to break the stalemate. He delivers a harsh reality check, telling the king outright, "You love those who hate you, and you hate those who love you." To save the kingdom, David has to leave his mourning behind and resume his post at the city gates. This act of arising marks the end of the combat and the start of a new, high-stakes phase of reconstruction, where national survival depends entirely on who the king chooses to forgive. Statecraft treats every high-level pardon like a line item on a political balance sheet. In this calculation, mercy is rarely a gift. It is a transaction with its own hidden costs. Look at David's most immediate problem. His own home tribe, the tribe of Judah, heavily backed the rebellion. Because they know they're guilty of treason, they are deliberately holding back and refusing to welcome him back to the throne. So David makes a radical offer. He sends a message emphasizing their shared bloodline. "You are my flesh and blood." And then he makes an astonishing concession. He promises to fire his loyal commanding general, Joab, and give the top military job to the rebel commander, a man named Amasa. Run that through the ledger. On the strategic gain side, the transaction works perfectly. The tribe of Judah is instantly pacified, and they rush out to welcome the king home. But look at the long-term debt column. David has now established a precedent where armed rebellion can actually earn you a promotion. Worse, he has completely alienated Joab, his most capable enforcer, who just won the war for him. We see this exact same calculation play out on the road to the capital. A man named Shimei, who famously threw rocks at David and cursed him during his retreat, now rushes out to beg for his life, with 1,000 men behind him. David's loyalists immediately demand Shimei's execution. David stops the execution. He publicly swears to spare Shimei's life. By refusing to execute a loud public detractor, David projects an image of a confident, unifying monarch whose authority is secure enough to ignore petty insults. Right after this, David is confronted by two more subjects, Mephibosheth and his servant Ziba. They present a messy he-said-she-said dispute over who actually stayed loyal, each accusing the other of lying to steal a massive estate. Figuring out the absolute truth would require a lengthy investigation. Instead, David cuts the knot. He abruptly orders the men to simply split the disputed land equally between them. In both cases, the strategy is pure realpolitik. David willingly sacrifices precise moral justice in favor of sheer speed. Getting bogged down in executions and property disputes would halt the momentum of reunification, so he opts for rapid, sweeping compromises. On the surface, the strategy works. David successfully crosses the Jordan River, seamlessly reclaiming his territory without drawing a single sword. He even takes a moment to honor Barzillai, an 80-year-old loyalist who had funded his exile out of pure devotion. Barzillai asks for nothing in return, offering a stark contrast to the transactional opportunists vying for power around the king. Yet, the ledger always comes due. By bending over backwards to appease the factions that tried to destroy him, David inadvertently lit a fuse under his most loyal supporters. The first devastating consequence falls on the military. Joab, the fiercely loyal general who was unceremoniously replaced by the rebel Amasa, eventually takes matters into his own hands and violently murders him. Then, the political fallout hits. By focusing so heavily on wooing back the tribe of Judah, David alienates the other 10 tribes of Israel. They arrive at the capital feeling sidelined, sparking a bitter, jealous argument over who has the greater claim to the king. The resulting dispute calcified into a permanent national resentment. The favoritism shown in this exact moment plants the seeds for a fracture that will eventually rip the nation into two permanent, warring kingdoms. It leaves us with a grim lesson in statecraft. Political forgiveness is a powerful tool to stop immediate bloodshed. But when a leader abandons justice and betrays their own loyalists to appease their enemies, they haven't actually secured peace. They have merely delayed the next war.